Okay, hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the latest webinar from the National Labelling Programme. The aim of these events, as you know, is to support colleagues in policing to get the best value out of the technology that's available because of the NEP approach. Please post your questions into the chat throughout, and we'll get to them later in the half hour we've got. The recording of this will be done and it will be available on the NEP website later on. We will be joined in a moment by Alistair. Alistair is from Thames Valley Police. The ICT unit of Hampshire Constabulary and Thames Valley are delivering a joint platform, and Alistair is part of the strategic demand management unit that manages the way that the force responds to management. What we would do is we would demonstrate how Hampshire and Thames Valley have developed an app on the platform which gathers and manages information that's held on a SharePoint list. Now, SharePoint lists are a way of managing 365 platform data. And once you've seen the example, we are sure that forces will think really differently and innovatively about the way they could utilise this technology in a wide range of processes rather than the manual work that's happening at the moment. Tom will join us to explain in simple terms. I'm very much a simple person, how your force can pick up on this. And the best part of this is that later on, this will be in our solution catalogue. As colleagues that are aware, the solution catalogue has been up and running since March. We now have 12 solutions in there, and that will be shared and can be shared across the whole of policing. Please put your questions in the chat, as I've said. We'll bring them to webinar later, and if you want to know more about how the solution, you can contact myself and Tom via the NEP info@transformationpolice.uk, or speak to your delivery team who can ensure that Alistair isn't swamped with calls and we can make sure we can share this learning across the whole of policing. That's obviously what we're asking for. So, Alistair, do you want to, good afternoon and welcome. Do you want to take us through what you've been doing?
Hi there, good afternoon. I'm presenting today the Strategic Activity Tracker. That is a Power Hamps solution capturing information from contributors across the force as to how the organisation is progressing various improvement activities. So, next slide. So just about me first. I've been working for TVP for about 12 years in intelligence and strategic analyst roles. I've got a good understanding of various processes. I'm experienced in Excel and generally tech savvy, but I have little programming experience. I could best be described as a novice. I can see that Microsoft 365 has the potential to address a lot of business needs that have gone unanswered for a long time. I've not had any specific training, so I've made room to experiment with Power BI apps and Power BI over the last 3 months. So really, you don't need a developer or programmer to implement a solution like this. So the business need. So as an organisation, we're constantly capturing strategic information around a whole range of issues. It's hugely important for our strategic planning and our ability to make good informed decisions. So those activities that support that tend to be emailing various people across the force, collecting information via email or interview, or perhaps working groups, putting it into an Excel or Word document and then producing a report. But there is a problem with this process, because it's quite administrative and time consuming. It takes senior people away from the important work they do. And people often feel that they're being asked for the same information over and over again. It's difficult to get people to commit. There's delays and the quality of the information is sometimes lacking. So this all results in the benefits of the process not being fully realised. So the Microsoft 365 solution, to be accepted, any solution has to reduce the administrative time whilst improving the quality of information. Microsoft 365 Power Apps provides this capability, and instead of Outlook, Excel and Word-based processes, we can use other means with more advantages. So I chose TVP Strategic Plan to demonstrate these capabilities. It's relatively simplistic compared to some other information collection processes, and there's a lot of potential for benefit realisation. So the strategic plan communicates our priority outcomes, or kind of like our strategic objectives. Our progress is measured through success measures, And there are improvement activities which are allocated to SPOCs across the force to provide a quarterly update on how they're progressing. So in the current plan, there are 85 activities to be progressed. So a quick look at the current process. We have a researcher that emails a SPOC. The SPOC has a 2-week period to respond. The researcher either receives or doesn't receive and then goes back to the SPOC, or receives in the quality that's acceptable or goes back to the SPOC. And all that information is added to a Word document, it's edited, and then a final product is made. And as you can see there, that quite a lot of time is spent by the researcher, particularly around the editing and the production of the final product. What the proposed method is, or the new method using a Power App, is that a lot of this researcher administration is taking place automatically. So the Power Automate will identify that a SPOC is due to provide an update. It will notify that SPOC with a link to the app, in which they go to the app and they write their update, and then the completion of that update is then passed back to the SharePoint list, effectively removing a lot of the administration that the researcher would normally do. There may be a bit of editing that is required of different responses, and maybe the management of the SPOC lists on an annual basis. But generally, that there's a good cost saving that can be where the researcher can dedicate more of their time to research than the administration of this process. So what I'll do is I'll quickly run through the app. Okay, so this is the home screen, relatively simple. We've got down the bottom here the user that's logged in, whether they have admin permissions or owner permissions. So owner permissions relates to the owner of the improvement activity. You have an overview page. This essentially presents information from our current strategic plan, which exists in PDF format. So it's just for informational purposes. We've got the forward, we've got the priority outcomes, and then how for each of those outcomes we have our improvement activities and our success measures. I can use the home button to navigate back to the home screen, and we have an FAQ page. So this provides just instant information to users who may not need to dig directly too deep into the app. And then the improvement activity, which is the kind of main event. So across the top, we've got the title, improvement activities, with a little information icon, and this information icon is used in various places to indicate guidance. So if we click on that, you can see that we've got sort of call outs here, giving information about the different types of data that's being presented in the Power App, which quarter it is, whether it's an operational or organisational outcome, the activity and the update that's being provided by the owner. Clicking back on that will bring you back to this screen. Then we have a filter, and this acts as you would expect any filter to do. So the first one is a search bar. So if I take harm in there, then this will, I think there's a bit of a delay because I'm screen sharing, but essentially, yeah, that's only brought back the activities that have harm in the title. It also works for obviously the body of the update. Filters work as you expect, so we can select Q2 here, and we will provide it with the Q2 updates. And also, if you wanted to choose what type of outcome it is, you can see here that now this is now an organisational outcome, and you can do the same for priority outcome measure and the activity area. So the bottom here, there's a reset button, which just resets all your filters and brings you back with the original view. What's quite handy for owners is if you're a SPOC and you are allocated an activity, you can just come straight in here and you can type your name and select your name from the list, and it will bring back just those updates that you're responsible for. So clear that, and we can close the filter. What we've got next is the provide update button. So this is only visible when the logged in user matches the owner that's associated with this particular activity. So that just means that the owner of that activity is the only person that has the permissions to be able to edit it. If you don't, then that button just isn't visible. So if we click on provide update, this opens up a new screen. This is it pulls across the improvement activity that we're interested in and the appropriate response. And if we click in here, then you get a little info at the top there, basically just saying your response should be ready, written ready for the public domain. Please ensure you've read the guidance and using the info button. That info button is being referred to as here, and essentially this just got this guides the SPOC into being able to produce a concise, good quality response. There's also a little word count there, just for information purposes. So you can enter the data here as you see fit, or information here. Click submit, and as you will see, just in a second, that will update in the body of the text there. You also have a change owner button. Again, this is only visible to the owner. Clicking on that takes you to a new screen where say I'm my spot for a particular activity and I'm moving on to another role and I know who is going to be taking over from me. I can choose their name within this box, and it starts a Power Automate approval process, which basically asks the new owner whether they accept that they're responsible for the activity, and if they click yes, then the Power Automate process automatically writes to the underlying SharePoint lists the new owner. For when a new owner is not known, the user can submit this button, and it will provide a task to the administrators of the system to identify a new owner. The final functionality is here, and this comes to, we've spoken about owner permissions so far. This is administrator position permissions. An administrator can click over the current owner and just change it without any kind of approval process taking place. So that's the demonstration of the app. I'll just click over to the benefits of the app. So the main benefits for SPOCs are it's easy to make updates, there's increased accountability with pop-up guidance, and improved collaboration. So in the current process, SPOCs aren't able to see the work of others. However, in this process, you can obviously see the way people are structuring their responses and the quality of the response, which all contributes to better decision making. The administration benefits are that the SPOC notification is all automatic, so is SPOC management, and the Power App is the final product, and this is really important because the final product takes a long time to produce. So everything's in a central place, the capture of information and the presentation of that information is all in the one app. End user benefits means actually this app can be used over multiple years, so it's a really good evidence base for understanding what has happened across the whole organisation during that time in regard to the improvement activities, what's worked, what hasn't, and the data is stored in SharePoint lists. This is really good because it means that all the data is easily manageable. It can be integrated with lots of other Microsoft 365 apps and is exportable to Excel. There's still a few aspects that are currently in development. This is not related to the Power App, it's related to the Power Automate functions regarding notifying owners and the change of owner and the unknown owner. However, they will be resolved shortly. And the future development, this is really interesting. I think the integration of this Power App with Power BI, or bringing a Power BI dashboard into the app, would be really useful, not only for understanding the progress across multiple years, quarters and activity areas, but also being able to link in with the success measures which are being driven by the Force Performance Group. So every quarter we have a Force Performance, and the chief will go through how we are reaching those success measures, and obviously the improvement activities provide the context for how we are doing that. It'll be really interesting to integrate those in the future. I'd also like to add the ability to provide supplementary information. Say I'm a SPOC that has information which can contribute to another activity. I don't have permission to write it, but I can notify the owner that there is extra to go on there. So I hope to have the app implemented within the next few months. The main functionality is present. There's some end user testing to do and tidying up. It's been uploaded to the solutions catalog with deployment instructions. And there's certainly enough functionality now to take it away, test and have a play with it and see if it fits your requirements. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Alistair. That's a great example there of utilising the technology to get rid of some archaic processes that we know that are still being done in policing, you know, the emails, even the files, and that aspects of that manual tasks that can be done. I'm going to bring Tom in because we do know that some of this black magic does confuse and concern people in policing. So from a technical and security perspective, what considerations and reassurance, Tom, can you give to some colleagues out there?
Yeah, I think probably the key thing, just to sort of reiterate around the use of SharePoint as a sort of a data source within Power Apps, is that the access to that data is driven by the permissions to the underlying SharePoint list. So, for example, if you've got an application that is shared with an individual who doesn't have access to that SharePoint list, even though they may be able to run the app, they will not be able to view the data. So making sure that the appropriate permissions set on that SharePoint list are key, whether that be the ability to read content for those, or specifically those that have the ability to actually add content as well. Sitting underneath this is, of course, all of the compliance controls. So from an auditing perspective, from an information security and e-discovery point of view, all of the content that, again, is added into these SharePoint lists, whether they be standalone SharePoint lists or SharePoint lists that are driven via apps, again, will be will be visible and audited. So again, you've got that confidence from a compliance perspective that everything is in place. So I think probably worthwhile, is just to kind of just touch on some of the aspects of Teams. I think, what we kind of look at with Teams on a daily basis is obviously the the front screen of Teams, and we have our tabs and we have our files, but sitting underneath those Teams is a full-blown SharePoint site, and this is where that power of those SharePoint teams comes in. Now, for an app such as the one demonstrated by Alistair, it could be a standalone SharePoint site. There isn't a requirement for a team site sitting across that, but again, it can help in terms of, if you're managing those permissions, if you're working with a Power App that is going out to a subset of users and they work within a team or community, having that Power App and having those Teams lists linked together does provide a single point of administration, because as you change those Teams users, that again is then driving the underlying SharePoint list that's associated with it as well. And the easiest way, if you're looking at it from a Teams point of view, is going onto the Files tab and then clicking the Open in SharePoint. And what this will do is it will actually just present you it will link through to the documents location associated with that particular folder. So it would come into this location, but as you can see, it is a full-blown SharePoint environment. So if you wanted to create a new list, you could click on Site Contents, click New, and this is where things have certainly improved recently. So you now have a dedicated option to add a list, and again, you can bring that in from Excel. You can start from blank, and there's even some templates that you have available as well. But with some recent updates to Teams, there's an even more straightforward process. Where you can actually just click the little plus icon. You can select lists from the list of available apps. It will ask you to add this into your team environment, and then it will ask what you want to do, whether that's an existing list that you've already created within that SharePoint site, or whether you wanted to create a new list. And again, familiar. Look here to the other screens that we saw. Start from blank, give it a name, give it an icon, give it a color, and this is where you can start to add in the content and the structure of your list. So by default, every list starts with a title field, but then you can start to add in these additional columns. And for a choice column, for example, you can either bring in color coding to ensure that as users are using this, they've got some visual cues around that content too. So lists a huge amount of opportunity, being able to extend this by the use of Power Automate to trigger events based on what happens within a team, whether that be a new record created or being updated. So again, from an approval perspective, from a notification perspective, writing a message into the team's chat when something takes place, there is quite a lot of opportunity around the use of these lists within Teams, but also within SharePoint, in a standalone environment too.
Thanks, Tom. I think a couple of good points, and Alistair made them as well. What we do try and emphasise a lot of the time is the integration of the whole platform, of utilising all the tools and technologies so they integrate really well across the whole piece. And you can only do that if you understand the capabilities and you try and explore them, and then you can talk to us. Visually, it's certainly better than Excel. And there's some great opportunities around that. David, can I bring you in for some questions if there are any for the team?
Yes, certainly, Reece. There's a few questions, and Alistair, Tom, Reece, get ready for this. So what sort of resilience have you thought about to keep such apps supported? Does your IT department help, or have you taken control back into the business, empower the users for self-help, hand over support? What happens when they move on? So I'll probably start with that one, Tom, about what happens when the app owner moves on as a starting point.
Yeah. So sitting behind these Power Apps is a full administrative portal. So your IT team will be able to see exactly who has created apps, what connectors are in use, who have they been shared with, etc., etc. So in the event of somebody leaving the organisation and that team, if you like, or that app being left kind of in a point of stasis, there is the ability for them to share that app with another administrator, so give them the ability to edit, or that can then be brought in-house to IT, and IT developers or support teams can take ownership of those apps and then give themselves the ability to support and edit those apps if need be. As with kind of all of those admin functions, the ability to do this is audited. Getting access to that Power Platform admin consoles, you have to have PIM, so there's the approval process. So again, you have that confidence that those processes can't be done without oversight.
Thanks, Tom. And Alistair, I'm going to come to you with the next question, if I can just pop it back up on my own screen a second. So get ready. So this one's around, did you encounter any pushback from ICT in regard to doing this in terms of licensing costs? Did you need a license for this particular app? And is there any lists around data storage, and how did you overcome developing this? So Alistair, over to you.
Yeah, so no, I've not had any pushback from ICT. The licensing situation at the moment is that we are currently not fully licensed, but I believe that when we will be, then both Power Apps, Power Automates, and other apps in the Power Platform come part of the package. So unless you're looking to use specific connectors or bespoke connectors, I think they will come under the current licensing agreement.
And so Reece, you've come across this, you do a lot of work with the Power Platform side. What sort of element risk is there to Forces in taking this forward?
Power Automate, Power Apps are all there. The guidance is in the enabling centre as well around that work and the solution catalogue. If Forces have any concerns around that, because there are some intricacies and some nuances around automation in that work, then please come and speak to us. Power BI, we should mention, is not part of the NEP MOU, but all the other aspects that Alistair spoke about did. From a personal perspective, I just want to flag up, the great work that TVP and Hampshire have done around the delivery of the work in Force. They have got a real blended team there. So we do, the ICT team along with the business are in all the conversations we're doing. We're doing some great work in the Marac use case, which they're trialling in Bracknell at the moment. So again, I think that blend's really important. So everyone is together on this, and that synergy between the ICT and the business and users such as Alistair is there. That's a given, I think.
Okay, and there's another question in there about the linkages with Power BI. So one of the forces created a SharePoint list and would like to run reports based on these through Power BI. We can only access Power BI via Microsoft Teams. There's a way you can link a list to Power BI in Teams, or can this only be done through a desktop app? I think, Tom, this is probably coming your way, is it?
Yeah, so I think this does link back to Reese's point around licensing. So with the licensing that included within the MOU, so the base E3 version, Power BI Pro isn't included. So although you can run Power BI as a desktop app and you can create your own dashboards, you can't share them. And this is really where that requirement comes around those lists and teams. So what you would do with a Power BI Pro license is that you could publish that that Power BI dashboard into the Power BI portal. That would then, you could share that with anybody else who has a Power BI license, but you could then also embed that within Teams, within a Power app, within really any medium to allow that dashboard to be seen. But ultimately, yes, you can access and create Power BI dashboards from underlying SharePoint lists, but it's that licensing element that's needed.
So I think that's all the questions, Reece. I just make the point that, if people want any information about the MOU for the NEP, they go to the PDS website, they will find that the details are there. And the MOU we have access to does include some options around extending beyond the normal E3 licensing that you require for this. So Reece, I'm going to hand back to you now, and I'll show the enabling centre again.
Brilliant. So a massive plug from us around the Enabling Centre and the Solutions Catalogue. Sorry about that, but it's there. You can see where to download this one. If you don't have access, then please speak to your local force. Your delivery team as well will help you, or reach us on the NEP info@transformation.police.uk. Alistair came to us with this example. It's a great example, and some of this innovation and work we're seeing comes from forces, comes from the users coming to us. So please do keep these good news stories coming in. I think they're really important. And again, don't think of this output as just one pure output. It could be done in a number of different business processes, such as the Green Book business cases being sent around. We still work in a lot of archaic ways. So let's think about how we can use this tech well. Next week, David will be back, and he's going to do the Back to Basics webinars because obviously some forces have moved on. So we've done some webinars previously. We want to look at how the NEP allows you to work together on documents and manage the access to those documents. It's an ideal one if you're new to the NEP and you're not as confident in using some of the tools as you'd like them to be utilised. So I suppose finally from me and the team, it's a massive thank you to Alistair and the Hampshire and TVP team for sharing their success with us. Yeah, that's it from us. Links will be there available. Don't forget you can download and you can rewatch any of the work that we've done previously. So please do get involved and reach out to us if you want to understand any more.